a lot of purchases. So these are things that eventually have to get done. Like we have a bunch of equipment out of these places that need maintenance and they need to be replaced. And so we're deferring a lot of that. And as we head into the short session, which I am going to talk a little bit about the budget at the end of my report, the state budget, it's not going to be a great year for getting new funding into programs, but this is one that has a different revenue stream. So just want the board to be aware that this comes directly out of lottery funds, and it was from Measure 99 about 10 years ago, 12 years ago. And it's not commingled, right, with other revenue sources. And so this one, we might have a chance of getting some relief. And if we don't, we're going to have to really radically change our program. So right now we run a 4-day program that will most likely not be an option for us. And really what it means is less staff hours, and a shorter program for kids. And I think if you ask most kids in the state of Oregon, like, what's their favorite day of school in 6th grade, they would go outdoor school. You know, it's really cool. And it's a great experience. I did put in my report a whole bunch of stuff from our all staff in service, which was really, really positive. And we have now kind of gone through a lot of the feedback data, and people were very, very pleased for the majority. You know, it runs the gamut, of course, but almost 70% of our staff rated it very, very highly. And then there was only a couple who were like, this was the worst day of my life, you know? And sometimes you get that kind of stuff, and that's okay. I put some quotes in here. One thing that I thought was really cool was we were able to, because we're such a big organization, right? We're 4 counties and 20 school districts and early learning centers all over. And the logistical challenges of bringing people together are very, very difficult. Long distances to travel, lots of travel reimbursement, and we lose a lot of time. So we were able to keep people in their teams, and you can see in some of the feedback that we put in this report that people felt pretty connected. So we're going to lean into that probably for next year as well, unless another gym becomes available for all the wrong reasons, and maybe we'll pile into a gym. Some other highlights that I put in the report, because it's just really cool stuff, and maybe I'm just kissing up to the president of Tillamook Bay Community College, who's all about workforce programming here up there, Paul Gerald. But we have a welding trailer here from PCC that's making the rounds, and our kids who attend our social emotional schools, which are fairly restrictive places. These are children who have not been successful in the general ed curriculum. They're in our special schools, and they're getting access to this very, very cool and enriching activity. And you could see the pictures and some of the quotes in here that a lot of kids are like, this is totally my jam, and are now exposed to things. And other kids who are like, this is totally not my jam. And that's a good thing too, because now they know something about them and how they can plan for their careers and their futures. So it's a really cool partnership with PCC. And we are trying to find new ways to partner with our community colleges in this space of preparing kids for careers, which is a really exciting thing for us. I did put some information here about our mentoring program. I don't want to go over that too much, other than to say we have a lot of people. This is a program we just spun up at the ESD 2 years ago because our superintendents were struggling to support new staff, and teaching, especially after the pandemic, is not the easiest thing to choose to do with your life. And when you're a young career teacher stepping into a classroom, there's a certain level of support that really we should be providing. So we spun up this program, and it's been an absolute success because of the work of Naheed Brown, Jerome Townsend, and our actual mentors that are working at the ESD to help new staff. So it's been really successful, and I put a couple of data points in there for the board. State assessment scores. So, I think the board's getting sick of me talking about participation rates in the state of Oregon on our state assessment scores, and that's just too bad. I'm going to talk about it again because this is the state assessment scores are by and large the way that the public and the media cover the success of our school systems. Every time these state assessment scores come out, there's headlines in every single newspaper. And I just want to, again, talk to the board about when kids don't participate in these exams at high levels. 95% is what is considered the minimum amount of participation to get a valid result from the analysis across a big system. When we have lower than 95% participation in the old days, like in AYP and No Child Left Behind, they would throw your test scores out and you'd actually go into like the improvement status because your participation rates were low. Well, now we've just accepted in the state of Oregon that below 95% is just the way it is. And it doesn't matter. We're going to still report on these scores as if they are the end all be all about what's happening in our school systems. And I just say it's just simply not true. And they are concerning scores. Like both of those things can be true at the same time. So with the participation caveat that the board is used to me saying every year, and everybody in the state that will listen hears from me every year, there are some trends here that I did want to point out to the board, and especially the long trends, like these 4-year trends. And Valerie, can you click forward on this? Or thanks. And I did just put a few slides. These are not in your packets. I'll send these out to the board just so you can see. And I don't want to get too down into the data. I just want you to see some trends. So what you see, hold on. Okay, stay. Oh, I already yapped about participation. Go to the next one. Thank you. So what you see here is third grade reading and third grade language arts. Oh, thanks so much. Across 4 years of time, kind of post coming out of the pandemic till now. And you can see some fairly flat results on third grade reading. So that's a data point that we need to understand in the state of Oregon. And these are our regional trends. And you can also see here that the black line is below the yellow line. So our region outperforms the state generally, but these are pretty low scores. When you think about 40, for the common person who's not involved in this education enterprise like I am and like our staff are, you would go 43%. So that means that 57% of the kids can't read, right? And I just want to temper what these tests are actually measuring. These tests, it used to be in the state of Oregon, like when Doug was superintendent, we'd have scores in like 80, 85%. Right? It's not like we lost 45% of the kids and now they can't read. The standards changed. They are very, very high standards in the Smarter Balance assessments. They're actually pinned towards college readiness. So these are college readiness standards from third grade. It used to be pinned on high school graduation, right? And so I just want to temper us as a board when we see scores like this. What we're actually looking at is a very high standard test. And yes, we have too few kids who are prepared for college level work at third grade, right? Or trending towards that. As I put in my written report here, we have seen steady growth in language arts in a number of districts. In general, for language arts generally, and I think that's the next, oh, I've got it now. Yeah, oh, this is 11th grade. Let's go back. Let's not look at that yet. So we've had steady growth for the state in Tillamook, Neocony, Seaside, and like I said before, in Vernonia. These are districts that have buckled down over time and seen those kinds of gains. And in third grade reading, we see another list of districts similar to the top, right? Seaside, Vernonia, Tillamook are also in those, but you also have Napa, who's made some sustained growth. Tillamook, oh, they're up above 2, but Sherwood making sustained growth, and St. Helens making some sustained growth. And I just want to call out that there's some good pieces to this data set because we're very used to getting bludgeoned with all the things that are wrong, but there are some good things going on here in the data. And then we do have some districts that have steady declines. So I don't want to be Pollyannic about it either. So we did see two trends in two of our school districts where year over year things are going in the wrong direction. And so we have work to do in all of our districts. So I wanted to share that. I did put this one in here. And when I say me, I mean Brian Bain, who's sitting behind me, put these charts together. And this is our 11th grade English language arts. And you can see now this is like kids who are at the end, right? So now this gets closer to the notion of kids that are prepared to go and be successful in a 4-year or 2-year college experience. And those are results that need some attention. I do preface those with we have the lowest participation rates that we have in the state of Oregon are for 11th graders. There's just not a lot of reinforcement for a kid to take this kind of test. It doesn't mean anything for their graduation. It's not used for college entrance, right? And so even my daughter's a junior, and I guarantee the begging is going to be on for her not to have to take this test. She's going to take it. And if she's watching tonight, you're taking it. All right. So that's a little bit about state assessments there that I thought the board should know. We are going to talk about the strategic plan tonight, so I don't want to go into my written report on that. We'll talk plenty about the strategic plan tonight. I did want to reference just the people who are putting a lot of time into this. We have a team of 20 people who are really engaged in data dives and trying to figure out what other information we need from our communities to have a plan that's meaningful and relevant, and will push these, get these student assessment scores up. Okay, the last things I want to talk about tonight are more budget oriented, and I started my report with that in the written report. I just refused to start the night talking about federal funding situation and the shutdown, but I will end my comments in that domain. So, we know that the federal government is shut down right now, and it's creating quite a lot of uncertainty for a lot of people. A lot of individuals who aren't making a paycheck right now, but also in systems. At this time for our system, we don't anticipate any immediate disruptions to our programs, even the ones that we receive federal funding for. We have a lot of our programs are commingled with federal funds because we do so much special education, right? I mean, that's like our big jam, and that a lot of our funds come out of IDEA, which is a federal law. So most K-12 federal funding is forward funded. So they make appropriations, we get forward funded in July, and states draw down those funds. So for this school year, we're feeling okay about our ability to maintain our programs. But when we look ahead to 26, 27, in the funding bill that's currently, what we're stuck on here in the funding bill and what the Democrats are demanding to reopen the government. The things that you're not seeing are a demand to refund the migrant education program or refund special education, right? Those are not the issues. So I just want to be realistic with the board and not to set people's hair on fire, so to speak. But the next year is going to be a difficult one in our budget. It's going to be a difficult one for programs that have heavy federal funding connected to it. And the last thing I'll talk about around money tonight is Oregon itself is going through its own budget challenges. Some is obviously connected to Medicaid and how those resources will or will not show up in the state budget, and the level of backfilling that the state will need to do if it chooses to ensure that people have adequate health care. That's a really big part of our state budget. So there's a lot of unknowns there, but we also have our last two estimates for the state budget are much lower than they were when we set our budget last spring. And I don't want to set alarm bells off too much, but we have been told by the Oregon Department of Education that Governor Kotek has directed agencies to prepare for a pretty radical budget reduction exercise. In other words, they're going to do some tiered planning around some pieces of the state budget, or all the pieces of the state budget. It doesn't mean that they're going to implement those plans, but she has directed state agencies to look for up to a 5% reduction in the biennium. We are already in the biennium. So if a 5% reduction is implemented in the second year of the biennium, like beginning of next year, that's actually a 10% reduction. I know that math doesn't make sense to anybody, but when you got it. So we are looking at some really, really steep stuff. We are being told that there is a likelihood that we will be making reductions midstream, which has not happened since 2011 here in the state of Oregon. I was this district superintendent I was not. I was the assistant superintendent at that time, and it was like the worst year that I've ever had in administration. It's really, really difficult to do, and there's a lot of people and families involved in those kinds of things. So again, I don't want to be too alarmist, but we are getting these messages from the state, and so we have to be at least starting to plan accordingly internally as well. And so we will begin to have some of those conversations at the leadership level until we figure out what's going on with the state. And lastly, I put in here that we have a great event coming up. So we have our Cascade Alliance for Equity Fall Summit, which is a student-led conference. It is awesome. Like I said before, we did it here in Vernonia last year. We will be at the International School of Beaverton in Beaverton School District this year. And there's a link for you to register if you would like to. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Are there any questions from the board? Any questions on the screen? All right. Any questions on the screen? Okay, we will move on to the next order of business, and one of our favorites, recognition and good news. And with us tonight are the Columbia Health Services and Columbia Community Mental Health. Come on in.
You may have.
That working? Okay.
Come on over.
All of them.
I can hold the baby if you want.
Sure. Do I do that first or after? Okay. And then talk about it?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, not yet. We have to get the board in there, Tracy.
Yeah, just one. She knows what she's doing.
Thanks so much for having us. I'd like to introduce you to Neha Herzog. She's my colleague at the ESD, and these are our partners, Columbia Health Services and Columbia Community Mental Health. And we have been partnering together for much of the last year on many different experiences out in school districts. And Neha is going to tell us a little bit more about that.
Yes. Hi. I am the school safety and prevention specialist. I presented to you all about some of my work last spring. And today, I know we're talking about good news, but I'm going to have to backpedal a little bit to bad news to get there. So when our school communities are faced with a tragedy or a traumatic event, whether it's a death, some kind of accident, a medical emergency, the discovery of sexual misconduct, the ripple effects of those events go far beyond those directly impacted. And the school community experiences grief, loss, anger, uncertainty, and that can disrupt students and staff sense of safety and trust, as well as the learning environment. So what we do in those situations is we bring in a team of folks to help that school community recover and regain stability. And that looks like providing folks available to talk to them and help them process what's going on. It can be an extra person to be in a classroom with a teacher and provide that emotional support, or give them a chance to take a break, as well as be able to, read announcements or take on some tasks that people are not up to doing that day. And especially in our small districts, when something like this happens, the entire school community is impacted. So we don't want the staff members there who are dealing with these feelings themselves to have to be the ones to provide all of that support. So we bring in folks from neighboring districts and from community partners to provide some extra hands on deck to help with that. And this past year has been a particularly difficult year. We've had a lot of collective trauma in districts close together, which has limited somewhat our capacity for neighboring districts to provide support. And so we've had to rely more than ever on our community partners, and both Columbia Health Services and Columbia Community Mental Health have really stepped up and met that need this past year. They have provided staff. So how this works is I'm often reaching out to team leads and saying, hey, something bad happened and I need your help. Can you provide us with some staff tomorrow to take time off of whatever else they would regularly be doing and come help our school communities? Or sometimes even, do you have anyone who can stop what they're doing right now and come help us? And every single time that I've done that, that I've made that phone call or sent that text, these two agencies have stepped up and have been able to help us. And I cannot express how much I appreciate knowing that I can reach out, and every single time there are going to be skilled, compassionate people showing up to help our school communities recover. And it's hard to quantify what kind of impact that kind of support provides. They're showing up, they're sitting with our students and staff through their most difficult moments, holding on to that trauma with them. And when you're there, you can really feel a tangible shift, even from the morning to the afternoon or from day 1 to day 2, as people feel that support and start to move toward building that resilience and feeling like they can move forward as a community. It's something that's really hard to quantify. And we are so grateful to our partners for being able to provide that support. Collectively, these agencies have provided supportive responses in Jewel, Rainier, St. Helens, Scappoose, our Northwest Regional early learning sites, sometimes multiple times, sometimes consecutive weeks. And we're so grateful for that partnership, and thank you for that.
Yeah. Do board members have, yes, yeah, we'd love to have you introduce yourself. Do you want to come?
Having them introduce themselves.
Yeah.
I'm Sherry Ford. I'm the director at Columbia Health Services.
I'm Amber Beth, and I'm the mental health program manager at Columbia Health Services.
And this is Heidi Hutton, our clinical supervisor. And Dean.
Aj Omar, I'm the clinical director of family medicine.
Thank you. We're so glad that you're here this evening, and thank you so much for what you do. Board members, does anybody have any questions that they'd like to ask? Anyone? Doug?
We used to do a flight team with Northwest Books. We used to do a flight team with Northwest Regional, and they did this. This sounds, from what I've read and stuff, very similar. Tell me, why do you do this? What is it that you get from it? Anybody?
I think my perspective is maybe a little bit different because my role is to see the need announced and then to watch a team of staff jump at the opportunity to come and support. I see the compassion, I see the mission to serve students. And the best part for me is when I hear the report, okay, they've asked us to leave. It is done for now, right? And it's very, for me in my very limited role, it's very rewarding and personally filling my mission to support students in our community and to see a team of people be able to invest that way is pretty remarkable.
I'm from a rural community in Kentucky, and I lived these students' experiences, and we had no one to come. So I do it because I want them to have somebody.
For me, I think it's because I'm also a community member. I live in Columbia County. My kids go to Columbia County schools. So it goes deeper than that in regards to like, I'm not only a professional, but also I'm a part of community as well. So when something like that happens, this is all for us to be there.
For me, it's just there's an incredible need for both behavioral health and addiction services, and really just I think there's just so much need that I love seeing it being accomplished. I love the struggle of accomplishing it, and I love seeing the great work and outcomes that we are able to perform.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Any questions from people online? Well, again, we thank you for your dedicated dedicated service. And thank you so much for being here with us this evening. And, you know, these are things that you can't assess right away. It's long-term investments. And thank you so much for answering the call when it came. It's just, you know, you're like first responders. So thank you so much. We appreciate it.
I want to say thank you for recognition. You don't always hear a lot of good things, but it's really good to hear good things. Yeah, because this is great feedback for us that really reinforces what we're doing to help us, you know, just go out and give an extra push on it. So it's really great to hear this feedback. So thank you all for this recognition, because this just reinforces what we're doing, and it really helps. We like hearing the good as well as the bad, so we can always improve. But thank you for this. I mean, it really.
Well, there's not enough, and it's too bad you don't hear it daily of how much you are appreciated, but we are very grateful.
It was pretty nice to reach out with some good news instead of something bad happened. It's glad to be able to do that.
Neha's calling again.
Thank you so much for being here.
Can we get a picture?
Yeah, picture real quick.
Okay.
In front of the books. Sorry. 4-1.
All right. Board Secretary White, do we have any public comment this evening?
Board Chair, we do not.
Thank you so much. We'll move on to the next order of business, and that is our consent agenda. Our consent agenda.
Move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
It's been properly moved and seconded. It's been moved by Director Riley and seconded by Director Doherty. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the consent agenda passing signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Maureen, and I think we've got the same,
We got the,
same. How about Maureen, can you give and Ernest, can you give a thumbs up so we can get it recorded?
Oh, yeah, I can say aye again.
Or
Aye.
hand up,
Sound.
we've got the sound issue again, so.
sound up, okay, we've got
Okay,
up
we've
for
got-
Paul, up for Maureen. Up from,
Ernest said aye. Oh, you can't hear us. Never mind. Sorry.
okay. All right, up from Ernest, all right, we got everybody voted, thank you so much, thank you, appreciate that. Okay, our reports and discussion items tonight, first up is our strategic plan process update. Brian, do you want to join us?
Yes, I do. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. I am pleased to come and present to you about the strategic plan update process that we're going through. So as you know, Northwest Regional ESD is in the process of updating our strategic plan, and we're anchoring that in the educational needs of students in our region, because this plan is what's going to drive or be our roadmap for the next several years, right? It'll define where we focus and how we measure our progress and the work that we're doing as an organization. I've not used this clicker before, so let's hope I get it right. I feel like every time it's a new experience. First thing I want to share with you is what we're anchoring in, our vision. I know the board is well familiar with our vision. I'm going to read it to you again. That every student, educated, equipped, and inspired to achieve their full potential and enrich their communities, right? That is our North Star. That's what we're aiming for. And the mission is what we do to get there. I know you can't see that on there, but it's there. And the values are how we approach that work. And those values are success, student success, partnership, equity, and innovative service. And those are going to come back through this presentation and through the strategic plan work that we're doing. So I want to call those out. Did you click it? All right, now it's getting like ghosts in the machine here. I wanted to start off with a quote from Elmore here. High-performing districts rely more on a common culture of values to shape collective action than on bureaucratic rules and controls. The shared values typically focus on improving student learning as a central goal. My reading was not that great there, but bear with me. And that's important because when we have that common vision and that way of getting there, and we can all focus on that work, that's how we're going to move that forward. So our values will be central to that new strategic plan, right? Those values are what's going to drive that work. This is a diagram you guys have seen before, the board has seen before. I shouldn't say you guys, I apologize. This is how we move from that vision through what we had in our strategic plan as collective commitments to the strategies, which is the actual ways that we're moving that work forward. Those break off into department action plans. And those plans are the one-year plans that really set those strategies into motion. That's where teams are working regularly and reviewing data and making those action steps that are going to move that work forward. With this revision to the strategic plan, we're going to replace the collective commitment with the values, right? With those 4 values, and that's going to be what we're going to align our work around. It's going to align better with our sense of purpose as an organization. And then we have a team that is our strategic plan design team, and they are focused on what those strategies will be. What are the strategies that are going to move us through our values to achieve that vision? That design team is made up of 19 people. I think someone said 20 earlier. We may have to recount, but I think we've got 19. I think we did have one person drop off is why. The team is culturally and programmatically diverse, meaning that it represents a variety of cultures from staff within our ESD, but also, and our community, but also different programs within our ESD. So our SEL schools, our early learning hub and our early learning providers, ECSE providers, our special education, outdoor school, all the different programs that we run are represented in this. That team is working through liberatory design, essentially, in creating this new plan. This is a rough timeline of how we're approaching the work. And so in August and September, we were really orienting ourselves around that vision, that mission, where we're at as an organization, and what our region's needs are. We were identifying areas of focus. From there, we're moving into this September listening sessions and looking at the information that we can gather from our community. And then in October, we'll come back and look at what are the needs from those sessions. And that'll continue around until we're presenting to the board in January. I'll have a little bit more on this later. The work that we've done so far is to look at those areas of focus, identify those areas of focus, and we're moving into that interpretation piece, and that has to be done with diverse perspectives, right? It's not those 19 people in the room who are figuring out what it is exactly that all this data means. So that's where we are right now, and from there, that'll bring us to what our needs are and our strategies. This was just an example you can read through. It was in your packet as well. So what did we do in the beginning? Seeing the system, we started with our liberatory design, use this as a guiding framework. And we started with what is an ESD? We started with what's the law? And looking through this, we came up with who do we serve? It says very clearly at the top that we serve school districts and the Department of Education, and our students are listed in there. And what do we provide, right? We provide educational services, excellent and equitable education, and those things in there. We also went back and looked at the guiding principles around different contracts that we have, say our outdoor school and so on. And from that, we then pulled together data to see how are we doing across our region. The data was provided in your board packet, so you have the whole thing there. The folks who participated in this, actually we did what we call World Cafe. So they had an expert to lead them through the data, and then they were able to make their interpretations from it. It's in those different categories. So I just wanted to share that with you. From their data review, this team came up with proposed focus areas. These are areas that we found particularly appeared to have potential for growth in our region, right? I'm not going to read those to you, but that is a list of 15 different proposed focal areas. And we have work that touches most of these areas already. And that brings us back to our values, because if you look at these values of student success and equity, that's what you're seeing in those proposed focal areas right now. We will be coming back to partnership and innovation. That's how we're going to reach those student success and equity goals, focal areas, is through focusing on how we partner and provide service, right? So we will be leaning into that in the near future. We're at a phase of empathize. We've looked at the data. Now we're trying to collect the stories and the feedback around what that looks like. And this team of 19 can't do it alone. So we've engaged our leadership in the different departments and department staff in reaching out to community and looking first at what have they already learned from their community. We have done a lot of listening over the last 4 years. Integrated guidance has asked us to deeply listen to families and community in all of our 20 school districts. We've helped school districts to lead that work. We've also have district job alikes where leaders from our school districts come to the ESD, or we convene around the ESD and look at the work that they're doing in their communities and get the feedback from those. As well as we have coaching relationships with staff and school districts and so on. So we've done a lot of listening at this point. Departments are looking through that listening, looking at those focal areas and determining what have they heard in those focal areas. And then, so I guess that's what I just said. They're doing that. And then seeing if there's additional listening that needs to happen. That'll happen before the next design meeting. And I put this slide on here to give you kind of an idea of where we're at. So the next design meeting happens on October 23rd. We'll have all of that feedback gathered back. We'll start looking at, beyond those focal areas, what are our needs for improvement. And then December 8th, we will actually come back and start looking at what those strategies are. So those are the next two meetings, and that should bring together a plan to bring to the board by January 14th. And I just wanted to share that all of the information that was shared in your board packet is publicly available. It's already up on the web, and we're being very conscious to get that information out as quickly as we can following each of the meetings that happens, as well as to send it out through internal. We have an intranet with a little more detail there, and it also has, it's going out via email thanks to Tracy's work in communications. With that, are there any questions?
Board members, any questions? It's just always impressive, you know, a lot of times these strategic plans are something we see in a binder and it's put up on a shelf and we dust it off. I just really appreciate how you keep us up to date, and it's a living, breathing, and you've got folks working on it and we're seeing progress. So I just really appreciate the dedication and bringing it to the board so that we can, and at the same time, taking in the different variables that are coming in that could, you know, have, make an impression on going in a different direction. But so appreciate that. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
All right. Next up, we have multicultural continuum and intercultural development. That's a mouthful here, Doctor.
These are the shorter titles.
Okay, these are short. Okay.
One of the things that they teach you in the program is you got to have long, impressive titles.
Okay, well, you accomplished that.
Well, thank you for having me. I am sharing information related to our anti-racist multicultural continuum and our intercultural development inventory. Briefly, what I want to do is be able to share these two tools that are utilized in the organization in various ways. One of them being more of a systemic tool in the anti-racist multicultural continuum, and the other being more often used within the individual work to be able to get to a point in which we understand in our system how we advance the work forward, and these tools give us some measurements to be able to do so. So, yes. So with the improvement design cycle of all the work that we do, we're looking to be able to improve. Most of what we do is in the cycle of understanding improvement science and how you see and learn from the actions that you do. So in this work, in both of the tools, the same goes for the movement. First is an awareness of where we're at. This beginning aspect is a starting point for us. It's how we understand our perspective of where to begin the work, and we can be in a variety of areas. Once you have that established, you're starting to grow in your understanding of the work through empathy interviews, through talking with folks, through self-assessment. And sometimes in this point, you have to be aware that some uncomfortable things may happen when you learn that maybe what you're doing in your particular realm is not the best for students, and you have to reassess what is. And then when you're able to do that, you can start to deepen the practice. You're getting new insights by being open to that. And you start to change the behaviors and the systems to be able to accommodate. You try those things out, see how they work. And then you begin a collective transformation with that one. When you have those collective transformations, those are happening in various elements of the system, then you're really leveraging the environment for all students. And then you're back at the beginning of a new awareness. What is our new awareness in this current situation? Some people see this as like a circular thing, as in like you're kind of spinning in circles. Well, we were already here. We already started with awareness. The imagery is better as a spiraling stairs. And so you're back at the beginning, but with a new level of understanding. So you're at a new level as you're beginning your cycle again, and then you go on through the process. So there are some elements within the anti-racist multicultural continuum that sets the baseline for how we judge this. One of them is that there's a 6-stage continuum. I'll share a little bit about that in a moment, that goes from denial all the way to integrative awareness. The next is that it's a developmental process. So understanding again that it's not a linear process that evolves in cycles. And when you start to understand that cycle, you're using that as a way of being able to improve. But the largest element in this is a student-centered focus and how each stage impacts learning. And so the continuum allows us to be able to identify where we're at, both as an organization, but as individual departments or program areas, and how we're contributing to that. So in the continuum, one of the things that we wanted to approach, you're familiar with the anti-racist multicultural continuum and the work that we've been doing. We've taken a new look at this over the past year to be able to get input that allows us to be able to center the student experience. And so this is not a new spectrum of elements that we're looking at, but a way of looking at it in a way that takes us into action. So we have student-centered examples in 5 different areas, one of them being curriculum and the lesson plans that come with those, student experience, discipline, engagement, and then our policies. And by looking at examples of how each of these phases look for that, then you're able to have an actionable roadmap. And this roadmap gives specific steps and practical actions necessary for moving from one stage to another. And then a final additional element is that there are indicators in each of the different areas to be able to not only understand where you are at, but also get us to a point where we're able to know what are the get to the next level and what does that look like when we're there. And so you have measuring progress that's able to take place. So just to touch briefly on the continuum itself, again, it starts with denial. This in particular is basically a space in which you're refusing to acknowledge the systemic inequities and disparities that exist. We're doing fine. Students are doing fine. Every one of our students are experiencing our system the same. We're not doing anything that could be detrimental to that. Conformity kind of moves into policies and practices that uphold the dominant cultural norms. And so the only changes that they'll make in this phase is if they're forced to. If there's a rule or change or policy or something, I'll change if I have to, I guess, let me know where the minimum is and that's where I'll be. Symbolic is performative inclusion without meaningful change. It's really about the looks or the appearance of it. Usually done in a way to say like, well, how are we going to be more diverse? Well, let's have representation. We put out posters. We want to make sure that we have various representation there. We have a committee. Let's make sure that we have different voices there. But what affirming does is it moves it into just for show and actually moves it into action, recognizing that change is necessary and also a commitment to addressing those changes. And then things start to take place where power is starting to be transferred and given to those who are most affected. As we move into anti-racist, this is an active disruption of the systemic racism that may exist. And we are able to look at it from an institutional level, as well as what is our particular department doing to be able to advance the work. And the final area is integrative awareness. For integrative awareness, this is where the teams, the program, the organization, equity becomes natural. It's the way that we operate. And equity being obviously different than equality, where we're given all the same things, but we have a way of making sure that each get what they need to be successful. And then we become the advocates for systemic change. We also become the leaders in equity work, not only for our organization, but as representation for the systems that we support. Part of the main element within this is maintaining continuous learning and reflection. Again, the cycle still continues to improve and improve. So even though a person or organization department is at this final integrative awareness point, they're realizing that they need to stay in a learning mode. They always need to continue to learn, reflect, and communicate with those impacted. And the hallmarks of this are you start to see more student-centered decisions, and that we start to take proactive and responsive approaches rather than reactive approaches. We're not making changes because an event happened. We're making changes because we learned something new, and we're trying out some new opportunities to be able to do that. And so that is the updated anti-racist multicultural continuum. There's, again, details within the continuum that allow folks to be able to assess where they're at. An important element also with this is that we may be in one place in one activity or element that we do, and we may be in another place on some other activities. And so the idea of being able to continuously improve and find out where we're at and be able to advance forward. As an organization, the vast majority of our students report that we are at affirming or above, about 75% of our staff report that that's where we're at as they reflect on where we're at as an organization. So I want to touch on the other element of the system that we look at as a framework called the Intercultural Development Inventory. And the Intercultural Development Inventory is a globally recognized assessment tool. It measures intercultural competence, again, at both the individual and group level. The group level is adding up or putting together all of the individual assessments that a team may take and to be able to say our team operates in this particular way. This also is a continuum from denial or lack of awareness of cultural differences. Polarization is a kind of a us versus them mindset. In this one, it could be defense. Other cultures, if they were more like our culture, we would be more successful. We'd work together easier. Or reversal. If my culture would just assimilate to this other culture or to the dominant culture, we'd be able to get along more. We'd be able to be more successful. Minimization is what I would call superficial cultural awareness without a deeper change. In this one, it's not a matter of there aren't other cultures. It's that I'm looking for the similarities that exist between cultures. So if we think about culture as an iceberg, you've seen probably the imagery on that one. Above the surface, you see the surface level cultural elements, our arts, our music, our language, our food. And we look at those and say, well, where do we have commonality, where we may have grown up? And then we start to bond on that because we're looking for commonalities. If I can see where I relate to you, then we can connect. We're not really worried about the differences, but that overlooks some of the cultural differences that really impact intercultural interactions. What do I say, or what do I feel, or what do I mean when I say something is respectful or kind, or what are my views on time, or what are my views on adult to youth relationships? As we get to look deeper into that, we'll miss that in minimization. But acceptance starts to accept that there are various ways in which these universal things like kindness and respect show up. And so where one group may see as respectful, another group may see as disrespectful. And so acceptance understands those differences, but may not know how to navigate it. And in adaptation, there's a deep cultural inner competence, which means they know how to take actions to adjust in different cultural environments and with different people. So IDI in practice, one of the things that it does, so, you take this assessment, you get the information back. What does it do for you? One is it pinpoints differences between your perceived versus actual intercultural competence. One of the unique things and the thing I love about this tool is it shows two different elements: a perceived orientation. This is my aspirational, where I hope to be, what I think I show up as. And then the developmental orientation, which is where I show up the most, or the tool that I use the most. I kind of look at this as like when I thought I was a really good driver, went to get the new insurance. They were like, plug in this thing into your car. Plugged it in, it says I wasn't as good as I thought, okay? So I had a perceived aspirational orientation of where I wanted to be. That developmental orientation kind of told me, I do stop at stop signs, but I go 40 miles till I get there, and that's not the safest. So in this thing, it's taking a look at the orientation gap. What's the difference between where you're at and where you think that you are? And that allows you to be able to identify that gap, take action. It also informs learning. It lets me know as a person who has taken it, I'm looking for different opportunities to improve my intercultural competence. I now know what to look for because of where I fall in the orientation. It also, as an organization, allows us to be able to offer diverse offerings that address helping people understand each other in a way that not only just like I'm aware of it, but I actually know what to do in various environments. And this could be anything from the way that conflict management comes up, or how someone communicates and being able to understand and navigate that. And then also it strengthens teams. Teams being able to understand where they are at collectively. This allows us to be able to move together as a team as we start to understand differences within our teams. We pride ourselves in diverse cultures. And so if we're not able to operate with those diverse cultures, then you've created an environment that's not going to be pleasing to the people that are around. They're not going to be as successful. This is a way for us to be able to understand one another and be able to seek ways in which we collaborate well together. So, systemic lens, personal lens, in essence, the anti-racist multicultural continuum guides the organizational growth, while the intercultural development inventory supports the individual development. And together they foster a truly equitable, inclusive environment. By having those two together, we start to see transformation starts to happen in various elements of what we do. So a call to action that we had within the organization as we began this, even before having the tools in place or the anti-racist multicultural continuum to be able to show all the precise steps you may need to take, is we committed to and have done the steps of having the leadership endorsement of the work that we do, securing presence in the work and the leadership and our policies, et cetera. We have strategic integration of the work through our equity lens, through our strategic planning, through our professional development, through our equity learning teams. All of these are designed to integrate. Is data-driven development, as you've heard through stock take and other elements that you hear. We're always looking at being able to differentiate that, to be able to understand where we're at and utilize that as a way of moving forward. And then accountability and progress. So transparently measuring our progress, making sure that we understand where we're at and have a way of being able to tell how we move forward. And this gives us concrete tools for being able to do that. And specifically talking about the movement that we make as the people and personnel within our organization, as well as the policies that we have, and then the way that we implement those through our practices. So that is the anti-racist multicultural continuum and the intercultural development inventory, briefly stated.
All right, are there any questions or observations? Anybody? Screen? Screen? Just, you got a big
You got a heart.
heart
All right.
from Ernest, so I liked it.
Thank you.
I love the work too, Liaru. Yeah, you do a spectacular job, and really impressed with the work. So thank you for keeping us grounded.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other? I have a question. When I was reading through the packet, and this is a very practical sort of question. When we refer to our students and the work that we're doing, is this work that you are doing with the individual 20 school districts, or is this more work when we refer to our students are the students that we have in our programs, like outdoor school or early? So when we refer to our students and the work, is this more of you training trainers, or it's a practical question?
Sure. So the intercultural development inventory, we've primarily worked that in-house as a rollout, but we've also offered that to leadership within our school district. So one of our school districts' entire leadership team, I sat with them, they did their intercultural development inventory. We came back and talked about how they relate as a group and how that would impact the student work. The anti-racist multicultural continuum, the revamp of that being new, we haven't yet rolled that out to our 20 component districts directly for them to be able to see. However, the work that we do with the district equity committees and supporting and advising that, as well as our community engagement work, both of those are informed by our knowledge of the continuum and where we want organizations to be. So when we lay out suggestions or when we ask questions, do you have an advisory group of students? Yes, we do have an advisory group. What do they advise on? Homecoming, themes. Okay, cool. What about decisions that impact their academic experience? Notice you changed the grading practices or the way have you asked them about that, and has that changed your policies? That's a different level of it. So it informs the way in which we interact with them, but we have not rolled out like the continuum for them to be able to utilize. I think that gives it. And then another is in our voice piece. It's the driver for the Cascade Alliance for Equity and the Student Summit, which we have 22 students who are going to be presenting at the next summit. And the topics, these students are bringing a wealth of information about what the experience is like to be students today, have a place in which they're able to share it with educators, whether it be this teacher, a counselor, all the way to the principal, superintendent, board members, and then they can take that information back. And that is the anti-racist multicultural continuum, creating the right environment for students to actually truly have a voice, not just be heard, I hear you saying something, but we act upon that. Does that help?
Absolutely. And I will be able to, that explanation, I will be able to share that when someone brings us up of exactly how we deliver that and how we get input. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
May I grab the mic from you? So Yeah, I think it's a pretty, I mean, it's a pretty delicate question, response to your question, quite honestly. Like we have school districts who, if they were taking the anti-racist multicultural continuum and thinking about it for their organization would be in really different spots, just like you see in our communities, in our politics, et cetera. And so really these frameworks right now are ways to ensure that we, as the ESD, are the very best service organization that we can be to serve all kids in districts, regardless of a district's own mindset, so to speak, around these types of tools. That's primarily like been our focus, is to ensure that our ESD is equity focused. We are anti-racist, and we are growing towards that integrated awareness state, which is the maximum level on that tool, so that we can be the best we can be for students and communities. This tool would not go over well in some communities.
Sure.
And we recognize that. And we actually get some feedback from people, not usually in the school districts, but others in the community around this type of work. That's the nature of being in the fight for every kid. So we understand that, but it really is right now mostly an internal endeavor. And then we share it with people who are open to that in our communities.
Absolutely.
Your staircase analogy, and again, everybody, every board member, every superintendent, every teacher, every student, I mean, we're all in a different place on that staircase.
Precisely.
So that was great.
Yeah.
Great explanation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Have a good
Right.
evening.
All right, next up, we have the first reading of policy JHCCF. I'm not even going to try to say the word, but we get it, headlights. So joining us again from Nashville, where it's getting very late in Nashville. It's just about time to put on your boots and get out boot scooting here, but so Catherine, walk us through.
Okay, Madam Chair, members of the board, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. I wasn't sure if when I unmuted if there was going to be an issue. So this policy has not been updated since 2017. And the guidance from the Oregon Health Authority has changed. It used to be that we excluded students with live knits from school. And the current recommended practice is to keep kids in school as much as possible, because we know that oftentimes those are the kids that need to come to school the most, that may be having more susceptible to head lice. And so you can see a very pared down suggestion of some language. And we kicked this policy around in the BPAC committee and really felt like we wanted to have a clear, succinct policy with a companion AR, so a companion procedure that talks more specifically about how we will address families and students in a culturally responsive way with more detail that we can provide to staff that are actually interacting with our students and families. I'm happy to answer any questions, but that's just a general overview. So the main change is simplifying the language and then making sure that our policy is in compliance with the most recent OHA guidance.
Are there any questions? The only thing I will add 2 cents is this was something that was taken up in the Beaverton School District probably about 6 years ago, changed the policy. And we did have some community members that were quite concerned about it. And we had a lot of the nursing staff address it and how it was going to be approached and once it was implemented and once the original, people being upset about it, we did not hear any other repercussions from it. So I think it is the right step to make for the ESD. Right, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. All right, next order of business are administrative reports. Superintendent?
Yes, I'm happy to take any question about the reports. There's a lot of information in these reports, and I, don't want to read them all to you. So I'm happy to take any questions that may have come up.
Any questions? Anybody on screen? Just want to make sure. Well, thank you very much for that. Next order of business, action items. Doctor, you're up again. Adopt resolution 26-004, Native American Heritage Month.
Thank you. I was excited because I had decided to print it out before I left. It's still there. Well, I am happy to bring to you this resolution in honor of Native American Heritage Month and the day after Thanksgiving as the Native American Heritage Day. I'll read through the resolution and as usual have a variety of resources that are available. Really exciting events that are happening, and the museums that are listed in there are beautiful to go to, a lot of learning. So go there and take time because there's a wealth of knowledge and learning and information there. So whereas November 1st, 2025 through November 30th, 2025, the United States celebrates National Native American Heritage Month. And the Portland metropolitan area is home to over 50,000 Native American and Alaska Native peoples, also referred to as First Nations, American Indian, Indigenous, or Native peoples, who are descended from more than 380 tribes or bands. And according to the 2020 U.S. Census, 3.7 million people identified as American Indian or Alaska Native alone, with an additional 9.2 million identifying in combination with other races. And it is another time to celebrate the rich histories, diverse cultures, and enduring contributions of our nation's first peoples, whose stories of perseverance, leadership, and innovation continue to shape our collective future. And Native Americans are the descendants of the original indigenous inhabitants of what is now the United States and maintain vibrant cultures, languages, and traditions, holding a deeply rooted sense of community, sovereignty, and stewardship of the land. And Northwest Regional Education Service District, recognizing the contributions and influence of the Iroquois Confederacy on the founding fathers in the drafting of the U.S. Constitution, including concepts such as freedom of speech, the separation of governmental powers, and a system of checks and balances. And Native Americans have made distinct and important contributions to Oregon, the United States, and the world in agriculture, environmental stewardship, medicine, language preservation, governance, art, music, science, and education, and contemporary applications of indigenous knowledge systems continue to expand scientific, environmental, and intercultural understanding. And whether members of the 574 federally recognized tribes and Alaska Natives entities or of unrecognized nations, Native peoples have distinguished themselves as educators, inventors, entrepreneurs, cultural leaders, scholars, and advocates, and their wisdom and resilience offer guidance for addressing today's challenges. Therefore, now be it resolved by the members of the Northwest Regional Education Service District Board of Directors that the Northwest Regional Education Service District recognizes the month of November 2025 as National Native American Heritage Month, and recognizes the Friday after Thanksgiving as Native American Heritage Day, and urges staff, students, families, and community of Northwest Regional Education Service District to observe National Native American Heritage Month and Native American Heritage Day with programs, ongoing lesson plans, and activities that honor the histories, cultures, and contemporary lives of Native Americans, deepen understanding and advance equity and inclusion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there a motion?
I move to approve this evening's.
I'll second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded by Ernest. That we adopt resolution 26-004, National Native American Heritage Month as presented. Is there any discussion? Very good as always. And I will just say, as a Native American, one of the tribes that is not recognized, I thank you for all the information that you put in there and that you encourage all of us to get better educated about our Native American indigenous population here in Oregon. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, no further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye, raising your hand on the screen.
Aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up, approve September 2025 financial report. Jordan.
Thank you, Chair Timchuk, members of the board. It's good to see you all tonight. The financial report for the period ending September 30th is not substantially different than the prior report. Our beginning fund balance on the general fund is up slightly from that report. Prior report was an estimate of 6.8 million. It's now sitting at 7.2 million. Certainly that is a positive development in light of everything else that you've heard from Superintendent Goldman tonight. The special revenue fund is back to its normal cycle of things. We've cleared that first quarter that was pre-funded for our two major grants, and all of our other grants are operating on a reimbursement basis as normal. The two major grants are also now operating on a reimbursement basis. One thing I wanted to point out is just language that I'm using in this report. I'm talking about operating surpluses and operating deficits, and I just wanted to define that real quick. We always kind of commingle the revenue that we're receiving with our beginning fund balance. The state defines that as total resources. So when I say operating revenue, what I mean is actual revenue that we've received for operating a program in the current year. So when I say that the special revenue fund is at an operating deficit of 5.7 million, that means we have expended 5.7 million more this year than what we've received in revenue this year. But we started with a very healthy cash balance. And so the cash balance in the fund is still positive $9.5 million. So we're still cash positive in the special revenue fund. For those who remember the past few years, that has not been our experience for the first half of the year. We're generally informally borrowing from our other funds in order to cash flow the special revenue fund. So the purpose of categorizing these things this way is just to bring clarity about how much of the activities we're having to front load as we wait for revenue, but also to continue highlighting the importance that we actually have cash balances in these funds. We operate over 100 grants, grant-funded programs, and almost all of them operate exclusively on a reimbursement basis, with the exception of the two that we got changed. So it's necessary for us to have cash in our accounts that we can operate these funds with. Otherwise, we have to go to borrowing. And then we're utilizing these grant funds. Interest for short-term borrowing is an allowable expense on a grant because it's a direct expense. But that means that we're paying interest to banks instead of providing services to kids. So I just wanted to highlight that. I think everything else is really kind of looking the same as it has in prior months, but happy to take questions.
Are there any questions from board members? Anybody on the screen? Well, I appreciate the explanation and especially having a positive cash balance at the beginning here. Besides what superintendent has already shared with us, is there anything we as a board can assist with at all as we look at this cash flow situation?
At the moment, we're in quite of a holding pattern. Just because the state is bracing itself for what could happen. And that puts us in a situation where we have to brace ourselves for what could happen. But at the moment, with the information we have available, I think acting too early could result in harm to our students and communities. And so I think the main thing that we need from the board is just, as we're bringing these updates, just take the information on board as much as you can. I know these meetings always happen in the evening, and you all have other things that you do all day, just like us. I mean, I don't think anybody's brains are in like prime mode when we get here. So try to take the information on board, and then of course to the extent that it's appropriate and that we want to be a resource to you. So if questions come up, happy to explain things in more detail. I do think that we're going to have some situations where we're going to have to just discuss things more than what we can do in 5 minutes at a board meeting, but we are way early on that particular conversation.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Superintendent.
thank you. I don't know about you, but my brain is working perfectly right now. And so
Sorry, I didn't mean to project my proficiencies.
I think one thing that the board can do beyond what Jordan just shared is you do have a state association, the Oregon School Boards Association. They do have an advocacy arm, and they need board members to kind of be part of their, have voices that shape that strategy. You all heard from me that, and you're seeing it in every paper, and there's a bunch of people on our board who work in public service, right? Mira and Paul, and they're getting the same messages that we have in school districts, which is things are going to tighten up. We are heading into a very difficult time, and your Oregon School Boards Association needs to hear from you and be able to hear what's going on in your local context. So there are a couple of opportunities coming up for OSBA. We have a November annual conference. I know Chair Timchuk will be there, and I believe Chris Riley will be there, and I will be there. And I know not everybody can do all these things. And then typically what we do here in our ESD in Washington County is we have a legislative day. And I know on the coast, our superintendents have been talking about a way to engage the representatives who in that area in a similar type of event. And that will be in January or February usually. Yeah. So I'm just looking at back here. So those are other opportunities to try to, get involved.
Ernest, I see your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Chair. To Jordan, I suppose that you're, doing some level of forecasting in this environment. Have you given any thought to a way to communicate, during this period, how the forecast feels without trying to predict the future?
The ESD environment is uniquely challenging for forecasting what might happen in the spring. We've heard from the state that they have ordered the Department of Education to begin budget reduction, like an academic exercise about how they would reduce the budget by 2.5% or 5%. As we've talked about, that would result in a 5 to 10% cut in because we'd be taking an entire biennial cut in 1 year. The challenge is the programs that we've heard of specifically are the State School Fund, the Student Success Act, and High School Success Act. And all three of those are significant funding sources for us, especially the State School Fund and the Student Success Act. But that leaves a whole lot of programs that we have that have not been mentioned by name. And I don't know if that means that they are not included in this exercise or just that they didn't rise to the level that the department felt the need to tell us that they are part of the exercise. So that's the first challenge. The second challenge that we have is that when the State School Fund gets cut, the State School Fund amount that comes to us, 90% of it flows through to our districts, and then we retain 10% for operating. And certainly a 5 to 10% cut for us and our operating in the general fund, that would be a challenge, but that I don't think would be anywhere close to the most significant challenge. The 90% that goes to districts is what creates a problem, because then for the districts, they have to make really hard choices about whether they're going to purchase services from us or try to move some things in-house. And there's really no way to forecast that. So this is a really long politician's answer to saying, no, I do not have great ideas for how to communicate this, just because it's so complex. And we really don't want to get into a posture of people thinking that this is what's coming. And my experience thus far, and I'm going to take responsibility for it. I'm assuming I'm not effective at communicating, but my experience thus far is when I try to forecast what might happen, people take that as I have said that that is what's going to happen. And then when it doesn't turn out that way, they get very upset and question my competence, my integrity, different things like that. And unfortunately, that just flows to the superintendent and the board chair in those situations. So I'm going to try to really not do that this time.
I've learned my lesson. So we are going to, Ernest, we are going to send a very brief staff message out tomorrow that will kind of summarize what we're saying here. But the top line is we're not hitting the panic button. These are all exercises, but for us to not say anything while it's in the news is not going to be a good way for us to go either. So we'll get something out, but it will be fairly brief tomorrow.
Any other questions? All right.
I move we accept the October financial report or September financial report as presented.
Second.
All right. It's been moved by Director Cornelli. Director Graham. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. We're now going to look at adopting the budget development calendar.
That's back to me.
Yes.
So this is a pretty straightforward agenda item, so I won't ramble on too much with this. There is no law that we have to pass a budget or that the board needs to adopt a budget calendar, but it is considered a best practice. And it has been our practice here. So there is a proposed budget development calendar in front of you. The main thing that I wanted to point out on this is that we have, just as we've done in prior years, we only schedule the first budget committee meeting on here. The budget committee can meet more times than just the once if they feel that they need to. This proposed calendar does create a pretty tight timeline because if how the publishing requirements work and everything else, if the budget isn't approved at the May 27th meeting, we would need to hold our second meeting before the board meeting on June 10th. And then if it wasn't approved there, we would have to hold a special board meeting later in the month to adopt the budget. The reason that I'm proposing that we have the meeting that late is because we continue to hear about February for these exercises about the state's budget, but February is when the short session starts. And then they have a period of time, and I keep getting it wrong, 60 days. I was going to go for 75. I'm getting closer. I started at 120 and I'm getting closer. 60 days. And then it gets adopted, and then it goes to through DAS for the reconciliation process and everything else. Realistically, I don't think that we're going to have reliable information about the 26-27 state school fund and potentially Student Success Act. We adopt our budget every year with uncertain information, and so we could certainly go earlier. It's just this seems to be a different kind of thing. Unfortunately for those, I was not around in 2011, the last time the state did a mid-biennium adjustment like this to education. But everybody I know who was says that this is starting to spark their spidey sense a little bit. It's feeling a little bit deja vu. And so I am concerned that that is kind of where we're heading in the spring. And so I think waiting as long as we can to have the most reliable information we can have. I'm still going to have to produce the budget way before this to have it ready for this meeting. But the board and the budget committee will have the ability to make adjustments to that budget at the meeting. And I can go through all of that when we get to the committee meeting. I said I wasn't going to ramble, and then I rambled, but I think that's the highlights.
But I think that was good rationale, and we should understand why the rationale is. I just recalled, do we have any additions or subtractions to the budget committee that are
We do have, I think we're going to need to appoint 3 new committee members this year. We have 2 expired terms and 1 person who has vacated their seat.
And when do you think we would do that process, do you think?
We are working on getting the announcement together. I just met with my team today. They'll be meeting with Valerie soon to get the announcement published. And then we'll just need to see how long it takes to get applications in.
The thing about our budget committee, we're zoned,
Right.
just like the board in many respects. So the positions that we have are in specific communities, and so we'll be able to turn that around pretty quickly here.
Yeah, because I knew they were from zone, I didn't know if it maybe it's a little bit harder to find people in a specific area. So holidays are here and, you know, all that kind of thing. All right, thank you. Motion?
I move we adopt the budget calendar as presented.
Second.
Been properly moved and seconded that we adopt approve the adoption of the 2026-27 budget development calendar as presented. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, board.
All right, last order of business, board member comments. Board member comments? All right. So with that, we will be seeing each other on November 12th at 6 o'clock at the Washington Service Center in Hillsborough. So with that, we are adjourned. But they did well.
The Yankees just lost in the playoff.
Everybody stumbles over my name. Don't worry about it. But this is what my mom